friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. Well, I recently had a subscriber ask me to talk a little bit more about my salt lamps and how and where I use them in my house. Now, she had been watching our video on how to detoxify your life, and I will link to that right up here. And again, I suggest you go and watch it. I mentioned the salt lamps and a few other things in there, but please understand, Mr. Rain and I are still in a process of detoxifying. I don't think any of us actually have really arrived there yet, because it's almost impossible to remove every toxin from your life, but we do the best we can. And salt lamps are one of those ways that you can do that, because the Himalayan salt lamps work by pulling the toxins out of the air. In fact, how they really work is by pulling the moisture out of the air, and with that moisture they bring with it the different pollutants that you'll find in the air. The other thing they do to counteract the toxins is that we are constantly exposed to positive ions, and that is in the form of like cell phones and all that kind of stuff. But positive ions aren't positive to our body especially when we're overexposed to them. And what the salt lamps do is they release negative ions that help counteract the positive ions, thus helping to detoxify in yet another way. A lot of people now will talk about some of the health benefits they've had in using the salt lamps, like helping with asthma and allergies and stuff like that. Now, I can't personally testify to anything as far as that goes. We had already been off allergy medicines for a while and had been seeing positive results there, just going off of the allergy medicines and letting our bodies do what they do naturally and just learn to adjust and have very little allergy problems anymore. But I wouldn't doubt that these help in quite a bit of ways if they're pulling the toxins from the air and the different pollutants and stuff that we're exposed to. One thing to note that I thought was really important that I hadn't heard of until a commenter had mentioned it in that Detoxify Your Life video about the fact that there are fake salt lamps being sold. And I was a little dismayed when I read that, but also like, well, that figures. Anytime anything gets popular and then in high demand, you're going to see false ones coming out. Think of olive oil and, fake honey, which is corn syrup sold as honey, different things like that. So you really got to do your research. And I was thinking, oh, great. I sure hope the ones I have are the real thing. I mean, I'd assume they were. But one of the ways you can tell, and I know mine are real, is that if they sweat. You see that? Because remember now, the salt is pulling the moisture out of the air. So if it gets a lot of moisture, eventually you're going to see it start sweating. And this one, and I was a little concerned at first because I've never noticed my other ones sweating. A lot of these stay lit all the time, or they're in rooms where they stay pretty dry already because of the wood heat that we use. And anyone who uses wood heat knows it does dry everything out really well. So I believe that's why I've seen very little sweating going on in these ones. Like this one here is the one that stays closest to our wood stove, and it stays lit all the time. And this is in our living room, and it doesn't have any signs of sweat on it. But looking at this one that I've been keeping in a different room, I can see down here where it has sweated. And then I've never had issues with these ones sweating, but same thing there. They've always been kept where it was really dry. But I had bought these same ones for other family members that had a lot more moisture in their home than we do, and theirs were sweating really bad. So, and to the point that one of them sweat so much that they lived in a trailer at the time, and so trailers are known for being bad with moisture. And that it sweat so bad that it ruined the paperwork that was sitting close to it. So if you're going to get a salt lamp, you want to keep in mind, especially if you live in a very humid home, you're going to want to keep it on a plate. Now, the nice thing about these particular ones is if you don't have solar power or you're totally off grid, you're not going to want the electric ones. They do make ones that run off of candles. So the reason mine are kind of black at the top is I tried putting votive candles in here to see how well they'd work so it'd last longer. But they're just a little too tall. There is a votive that's somewhere in between a tea light size and your regular votive candle size. Those are the ones I recommend because they're a little bit bigger than the tea light. They're going to last longer. And then you can stick them in the tea light holder, the little metal tray, and that'll keep the wax from also melting out the bottom. I've had that happen too. Just sticking the candle straight in there. And here's one with one of those types of votives I'm talking about, the shorter one. And that works really well in these. So this is the option if you're completely off grid or you're just trying to save electricity or whatever the case may be. Now, some other things you might notice in these salt lamps, seeing them all together, is though their shapes are similar because they are hand carved. I got them all from the same company on Amazon. Each one is unique. They don't all look exactly the same, and they shouldn't. So that's going to be a pretty good sign right there that the lamps you have are the real deal. Some other things that I read about is that if they're really bright and they can light up a whole room, that's a good sign that the lamp is fake. But that alone is not going to tell you. I think the sweating thing is going to be the main thing. And then again, how fragile they are. If they don't break or anything real easy, they're very sturdy. That's another good sign they're fake. But the light thing, that's not the best thing to go by because as you can see with the differences in color, like this one has a much darker color, where this one is much lighter. This one puts out more light. And this one is the one that sweat a lot because my son had it out in his trailer. And, but yeah, this one here is definitely brighter. And also the light that you're using in it is going to also define how bright it's going to be. So you can't really go just by how bright it is. If one's dimmer and one's brighter, because I see differences in all of them. Now this isn't all of my salt lamps. This is just the 3 I brought out. I have one, I didn't bring out the one in the bedroom. That's one of the ones we keep lit 24/7. And then one of the ones in the living room. I've now put 2 in my living room, and I'm going to start keeping 2 in my rec room, especially now that I'm spending a lot more time in there again, even though I'm not teaching dance and martial arts in there. So I didn't even think until recently, now that I have another one, to put one close to my sewing machine, because when I'm in there, that's usually where I'm at and spending the most time is at the sewing machine. It is a big room, 1,100 square feet, just that room alone. And so having 2 in there, I think, is best. The bigger the room, the more you're going to want in there. A small room like a bedroom, just 1. And then any room that you're going to be spending a lot of time in, those are the ones you're going to want to have that lit all the time. Now, when I was also just to kind of determine whether or not these were real, because the other things you want to look at is just read closely and read people's comments underneath their reviews and stuff about the product. And one thing that kind of startled me, which I personally never had any problem with, but I did see several people, reviewers, say that they had things go wrong with the electric side of these particular lamps. I will go ahead and link to these anyway, and you can read about them yourselves and decide if it's something you think you're going to be keeping an eye on, then, you know, not keep it lit all the time when you're leaving the house and all that, then I wouldn't really worry about it. But then again, read those comments and see what you think. I have had these lamps for years and never had any issue with any kind of electrical fire or anything melting on me. Just look into it. Like I said, I'll link to these ones below because these are the ones I bought, but through that you can still look for more. Just look closely. The one thing I can say is I know these salt lamps are good. It could be just the ones the people were buying that particular time frame they were made. Maybe the cords were all bad. They could be better now or whatever. But again, I've had these for years, so maybe it's the newer batches. So just beware on that. And again, I will also link to these candle ones below because this was a pretty good deal for a set of 2 of them. I thought it was a pretty good deal. Just like these, I think you can also buy these in sets of 2 or even 3 and save even more from the same company by buying them in sets. So it just depends on how much money you feel like shelling out right away. You may just want to do what I did the first time. I just bought one and tried it out and was very, very happy with it. Just in general, it's a beautiful lamp when it's lit. All right, I went ahead and plugged these in so that you can see what they look like and turned off the big lights so you can see what they look like when they're lit. Now on these, on the dimmer switch, I have the light all the way up on these. So this is the brightest setting on these. And you can see this one here is brighter than this one here, because the color of it. And I mean, I don't know if it's showing as well in the camera, but I can tell, you know, looking at this right here in real life, that this one's definitely brighter than this one. And then this one, I would say this one's probably the dimmest one. They're all, yeah, these 2 are probably about the same. They're all just a little bit different because their colors are a little bit different. Now, the nice thing about these is you can also turn, like for the one in our bedroom, I usually keep it pretty low so it's not too bright. But with that in mind, the other benefit of these lamps is the color of them is very calming and very easing on the eyes, and actually can help promote good sleep because of the color. We spend a lot of our times looking at computer screens with the LED lights and all that kind of stuff, and those can really mess up your circadian rhythms. And the blue light, you know, in particular, the blue kind of light. We also use a lot of LED lighting through our house in the form of string lights because they're really low on electricity. We can run them on solar power pretty much year round. And I just like the more ambient effect of them. However, I noticed that they're kind of hard on my eyes after a time. So having a nice, more natural light like this in this orange color is very easing and very calming. So you want to keep in mind that whatever light bulb you use in this, you're going to need it to be an incandescent light, not an LED light, because you need it to put out heat, because it's the heat that is working by releasing those negative ions into the air and then pulling the moisture into it. And then the heat again dries the moisture back out, putting the moisture back in the air and leaving the toxins and stuff in the lamp. Don't forget that I will be linking to all these things in the description box below, and I'm also going to be linking to Dr. Josh Axe's web page, the article where he speaks particularly about Himalayan salt and salt lamps, and then also goes into more detail on how to tell the difference between the fake and the real. And I'll link to that below. And if you're new to how YouTube works and description boxes and all that, go to the description box right below the video and hit show more, and that will show you all the links, including our contact information way down at the bottom. All that stuff is always in there. Sometimes a lot of people don't know to look there. Just don't forget, and that will go for any channel. Hit the show more and you may be able to find all kinds of information that you didn't even know was there. So I hope you enjoyed this video and that you learned something new. Thanks for watching. Take care and God bless.